Hi, and welcome to the Bible Story House. Hope you have a great day. Long ago, after many years of wandering in the desert, God's people, the Israelites, finally stood on the edge of the land God had promised them. Their leader was Joshua, a strong and faithful man chosen by God to guide them after Moses. But before they could live in this land, there was one big challenge in their way: a powerful city called Jericho. Jericho was no ordinary city. It was surrounded by huge, thick walls that reached high into the sky. These walls were built to keep enemies out. Inside the city, the people of Jericho felt safe, thinking no one could ever break through. The Israelites, who had no mighty weapons or tall ladders, looked at those walls and knew this battle would be impossible on their own. But God had a plan. One day the Lord spoke to Joshua. He said, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands. March around the city once a day for 6 days with all the soldiers. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, and then let the priests blow their trumpets. When the people shout, the walls will fall down." It was a strange instruction, but Joshua trusted God completely. He gathered the priests, soldiers, and all the people of Israel, ready to do exactly as the Lord commanded. On the first day, the Israelites quietly formed a line. At the front were the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest that reminded them God was with them. Behind them came the soldiers and then the people. As the priests blew long, echoing notes on their trumpets made of ram's horns, the people marched silently around the city. The walls loomed above them, and the people of Jericho peeked nervously from behind the gates. But no attack came, only footsteps and trumpet sounds. Then, just as God said, they returned to their camp for the night. The next day they did the same thing: marching, trumpets, silence, no shouting, no fighting, just obedience. Day after day they repeated this strange routine. Some inside Jericho may have laughed, others grew worried. Why were these Israelites circling their city in silence? By the 6th day, the Israelites had circled the city 6 times in total. Still, the walls stood firm. But Joshua reminded the people, "Do not give up. Tomorrow is the day the Lord will act." Finally came the 7th day. This time there was excitement in the air. The people woke up early and prepared themselves. The priests lifted the ark. The soldiers took their places. The trumpets sounded. They marched once, then twice, 3 times. The walls still stood. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Still no change. But on the 7th circle, the priests lifted their horns and blew with all their might. Joshua cried out, "Shout! For the Lord has given you the city." And in one voice, the entire nation of Israel shouted as loud as they could. Suddenly, the ground rumbled. The air shook. Cracks spread across the mighty walls of Jericho. And with a thunderous crash, the walls crumbled to the ground, turning to dust and rubble. The Israelites rushed forward, entering the city just as God had promised. Jericho, the city that seemed impossible to conquer, was theirs, not because of weapons or strength, but because they trusted in God's power. The story of Jericho teaches us something very important. God's ways are not always what we expect, but His plans are always perfect. The Israelites could never have torn down those walls on their own. But when they trusted and obeyed God, even when it didn't make sense, He gave them victory. In our own lives, we sometimes face walls too, problems that feel too big to overcome, challenges that seem impossible. But just like the Israelites, we can trust God. His power is greater than any obstacle, and He is always faithful to His promises. So remember, when you face something that feels impossible, don't be afraid. Obey God, trust Him, and watch as He brings the walls down.